Welcome to My Healing is Your Healing, a podcast for the woman who is ready to stop performing and reclaim her voice. I'm your host, Celeste, and around here, we don't do surface level. We go deep. Each week, we'll explore concepts like self-discovery, radical honesty, and the kind of healing that rewrites your story from the inside out. This is a space for truth-telling, for remembering who you are, and for coming home to yourself, louder, braver, and more radiant than ever. So come as you are, and let's do this together. Let's begin. All right. Welcome back to My Healing is Your Healing. I am your host, Celeste. And today we are diving into dating and love. The messy, magical, sometimes infuriating work of learning how to call in real connection after heartbreak, divorce, or simply years of putting the rest of your life first. Here is the truth. Dating is complicated, not just because of the apps or ghosting or busy schedules, but because most of us are handed a script about love. From the moment that we can hum a tune, even in diapers, Disney tells us to wait for the prince. Culture tells us that we'll be complete with a partner. And family whispers, sometimes even outright shouts to us, that being single means that you are missing something. And at certain milestones, the script gets especially loud. When friends start to get married, when the baby showers start to pile up, when you hit a milestone birthday like 30 or 40 or 50. And suddenly, you feel like you're the one that's left behind. And so you start performing for love instead of inviting it in. And that's where it gets a little heartbreaking. Because if you don't trust or love yourself enough, you may grab onto the first person who comes along. Not because they're aligned with your heart, but because the silence of being alone feels too scary. There is no train schedule posted on the wall, so you don't know if the next man that's coming by is in 5 minutes or in 5 years. And so you grab on just to avoid that loneliness. I know this personally. I have been the one to force the outline of a life onto someone before they even decided to step into it. And I literally picked the ring, mapped out the escalator ride from the first date to the altar, and performed the whole relationship like it was just a checklist. And of course, I ended up on the floor crying because inside I felt empty, unseen, and unloved. And even before I met that person, I was on all the dating apps. I was swiping until my fingers went numb, begging strangers to prove my worth. My head was full of questions. Why does nobody love me? Why am I not chosen? When will it finally be my turn? I was waiting for someone to knock on my door and sweep me off my feet because I didn't want to do life alone. But the question that I never asked myself was, do I love me? And that is the question that I am still learning to answer. The cultural script does not make it easier. Your grandmother asks you, why are you still single? Your mom asks you, when are you having kids? When do I get to be a grandma? And by the time that you hit your mid-30s, after heartbreaks or failed relationships, you start to wonder, is there something wrong with me? Am I ever going to find love? And then scarcity takes over. You tell yourself, this must be it. This is all I get. And so the next person that crosses your path, even if they don't see you or even if they don't treat you with the care that you deserve, they become good enough. Because the thought of being alone for another 5 years feels unbearable. I have been in that space, dripping with neediness, hoping that someone would fill that hole inside of me. And of course, what I attracted back were people who mirrored that scarcity. Partners who weren't capable of meeting me emotionally, who weren't even offering what I said that I wanted. Because when you don't love yourself enough to know your worth, you teach others that you aren't worthy of the love that you actually desire. And this is where I want to pause and I want to say something important. Dating is not about performing or proving. It is not if I just do more, if I look prettier, if I give more to them, if I make myself smaller or anything like that, then they will finally love me. That is performing. That is hustling for love. And real magnetism, the one that's going to attract the person that you really want in your life, it comes from being fully yourself, from loving yourself so deeply that you stop chasing and you start attracting. And that's been the shift for me. The more that I've gone through this practice of healing, the more that I have learned to love myself in small and abundant ways. Cooking myself a good meal, doing my laundry without resentment, and actually enjoying my own company. The more that I do those things, the more intentional I've become about who I allow into my life. Now, I don't want to date just anyone. Honestly, I hardly date at all because my time is precious and my energy is sacred. And yes, I do get lonely sometimes. But I would rather wait 5 years for someone who truly was worthy of me than latch onto someone today who can't love me in the way that I deserve. Because the woman that I am becoming, she is radiant. She is powerful and she is absolutely worth the wait. And that is at the heart of today's conversation. Dating isn't about proving or performing. It's about healing, self-worth, and becoming magnetic by being fully yourself. Our guest today knows this intimately, and her name is Lilli Bewley. She is a dating coach and creator of the Feminine Dating Archetype Quiz. She went from surviving to thriving in love and purpose. And now she helps successful single women make dating fun and deeply aligned, even after divorce or decades of being single. In today's episode, we will explore feminine dating archetypes and how they reveal your patterns and blocks in love. Why just love yourself more isn't always enough. How trauma shows up in dating and how to stop repeating those painful cycles. And small, practical moves that you can try this week to invite love in without shrinking yourself or performing. So let's dig in. All right. Welcome, Lilli. It's so nice to meet you.
Thanks, Celeste. Thanks for having me here. My healing is your healing. I love it. Let's do this.
Thank you. I'm super stoked for this. All right. Well, I gave our listeners a little bit of a bio about you, so I'd like to jump right in to talking about your story a little bit. So
Mm.
the part where you went from being in a really dark place
Mm.
inside of a relationship that, we all know this, it looks perfect from the outside. And then walking through that and then building a life and a coaching practice that helps women find love again.
Mm. Yeah. Wow. Was that a journey? You like summed it up. I was like so ready to go deep into it, but you summed it up so beautifully. And it really was that for me. Like I focus on love and I focus on dating because I love love. Like at the center of who I am. It's like I'm loving, I'm kind, I'm pure in some ways. But what happened for me through my whole journey of attracting the best man that I've ever known in my life, the most amazing man that I've ever known, the way that he can meet me at the depths of my soul and my spirit and my like God and universe and all of these things. By the way, people told me like advice that I had gotten through my life in dating is, oh, don't go so deep on the first date, or just be yourself, or like all of these like tips and tricks that friends, family, even like therapists and coaches, they tried to get me to do, but never worked. I was always attracting unhealthy people in my life. I was always attracting, kind of people that really benefited from me wearing masks, right? Like as women, especially on this healing journey, which I know, are probably all the people in your community here, Celeste, is like, it's really about like shedding and uncovering like who we are inside of ourselves to really attract what it is that we desire on the outside. And so I my journey, really. That was my whole journey because I grew up in a home where I did not have a great model, a relationship model. I grew up where there was abuse and there was trauma, and my relationships were a reflection of that. They were a reflection of all of the wounded parts inside of me that was really leading my dating life. Like a lot of women, I feel like these days, especially, we'll talk more about the feminine dating archetypes, which I love to talk about. But, we go through these different phases if we're really into like getting better and healing and finding out who we are and all these things. Um, but the journey for me was about like uncovering and delayering and like rewiring in my body and my brain and my heart and my soul about really who I was. So I do focus on dating and relationships. The thing that's different about me is I take an inside out approach. Like all of those like other relationship coaches or dating coaches out there, it's all about the tips and tricks and strategies, the little sound bites that you get on the reels, the little TikTok, videos and stuff that if someone's listening, you've probably tried and it probably hasn't worked out very well for you, right? And so for me, it's about if you really want to manifest or attract your dream partner, it's really about changing things inside of yourself about who you are as a person, to be able to really attract in alignment, right? Like I think a basic rule of manifesting is all of the things that are happening on the outside of you are a direct reflection of what's happening on the inside of you. And so my gift has always been, because I've been there, I've been at the depths, I can meet people where they are and really start to unlayer, unravel, heal the subconscious and unconscious little patterns that are running so that we can do the work on the outside. So the story about me is really about being in a relationship that I didn't even know that was possible for me because there was a day in my life that I resigned myself to this crappy relationship that I had been in, where like you said, I was on the outside of myself, like on social media, I had the car, I had the money, I had the lifestyle and all these things, but inside I was crumbling and it didn't make sense to me. And so I hit this wall and really started to do this work inside of myself. And then after so many years of like hour after hour, day after day, week after week, session after session with my, my team, I really became into this woman where I could be safe inside of myself. And so that is really the work that I help women do through this journey.
I love that. And it completely resonates with me when you say, like, you attract everything that's inside of you and what you are,
Mm,
because I went through such a cycle of that. You become almost needy or desperate because you're in that scarcity mindset and you're
mm,
so afraid that you're never going to find that person, right? You don't want to be alone.
yeah.
And so what I was attracting was dog poo that gets stuck to your shoe and it like follows you around and everyone can smell it because you're just like reeking, that
Hmm.
neediness.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It's so true. Like the common complaints. I'm assuming you're married, right? Yes. No, you're
I
not. You're
actually walked away from the altar 2 years ago.
wow. I don't need to talk, girl. So people today, like women today, especially kind of up-leveled women, they're seeing a mismatch between, like they think that they're emotionally available to their selves, yet they're attracting emotionally unavailable people, right? Or they've done the work where they kind of know that they deserve something or they desire something in their head, but in their body, there are parts of them that don't believe it, or their behaviors that are self-abandoning behaviors or self-sacrificing behaviors, or, all of these things. It's a mismatch and doesn't make a lot of sense. And a lot of women that I work with have like done a lot of like healing. Like I have clients that have been in therapy for years or are therapists, right? And so again, there's a mismatch between what they know that they should bring in, but what's actually happening on the outside, right? And so like you said, it's like this weird disconnect between, um, again, what's happening on the outside, but what's really happening, on the inside too.
Because you can want it so bad, but if you haven't like done the work and actually figured out, okay, well, I'm still like trying to cope this way and, it's attracting this type of thing, then it's never going to work.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So let's dig into what is the feminine
Yeah.
dating archetype. Um, yeah, tell me all about it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, have you had a chance to take the quiz? And it's okay if it's a no.
I
Uh,
haven't.
Okay, I'm super curious. So if you're open to it, I would love for you to email me or text me or drop me a DM on Instagram just because I'm super curious. So a little bit about the feminine dating archetypes. This is literally the phases that I went through in my journey to become the magnetic woman. The magnetic woman is the woman that I aspire to be most of the time. Like I'm still human. I still have my triggers. I still have my things and all this stuff. Um, but it's a four-step journey of like little gates that you pass through in your development and in your healing to be the magnetic woman. And when you are the magnetic woman, you attract those things that serve you, that you desire, that you've been dreaming of. You know who you are and what you want, and things start to come. Like all of the things that you've been working on in your life come together to become this version of yourself, which is the highest, in my view, the highest version of yourself, to really attract all the things, the money, the job, like all the things that are in alignment with your purpose that God or the universe has for you. So that's the magnetic woman. So what's interesting about the feminine dating archetypes that I love personally is because I don't know if you've had someone on the podcast, Celeste, to talk about like attachment styles
Yeah.
or okay. So are you familiar with attachment
Mhm.
styles? Okay.
Yeah. But
You
go
are.
ahead and say a little bit more so that our listeners know.
Sure. Yeah. If you are, I bet your listeners are familiar with attachment styles, but basically attachment styles, they've been around for a while now, but it basically will tell you a little bit about, like, if you've ever heard somebody joke, like, I'm an anxious attachment, right? Like there are things that happen kind of in relationships, and it could be romantic relationships, relationships with family, relationships with money, really anything where there are certain kind of characteristics that'll put you into these categories of anxious attachment, avoidant attachment, disorganized attachment, or secure attachment, right? And so as I started to do my development, attachment styles was part of what I learned about myself. I was either, depending on the situation, I was mostly a disorganized attachment, which is like this kind of push and pull energy in dating and relationships where things are confusing and they're frustrating and it's like come here but go away, very like constant kind of dance with that. Um so the attachment styles does help. Like it did help me in my journey. The thing that I have a problem with attachment styles is that it's just after like knowing what your attachment style is, there isn't really anything about like, okay, well, how do you get out of your attachment style? How do you become a securely attached person, which is like, that's the goal. It's more of like it became kind of a label of victimhood, like a label of disempowerment for me and for a lot of my clients really too, because a lot of my clients will come in kind of knowing what their attachment style is and they'll joke about it like, "Oh, I'm anxiously attached," right? Like, I think it's funny, but it's like self-deprecating humor, and it's not like a life sentence, right? And so what I love about the feminine dating archetypes, and just to let you know, Celeste, like this was a divine thing for me. Like this was like God really just speaking into me like, "Yo, this is what happened." And these are the stages that your clients have been going through as well. And this is something that we need to talk about. And so, um, the great thing about the feminine dating archetypes is they're like you can pass through gates to get to the next level. And everything, like if you were to tell me, Celeste, like Lily, I went and took the quiz. I got the chill woman archetype and but I'm not quite sure what to do with it. With the chill woman archetype, I can tell you with almost 99% certainty the things that you need to heal in order to get you to the next level. Like for example, the chill woman has some abandonment things happening. She has some boundary issues. There's all these things about things that she needs to work on inside of herself or in, in therapy or coaching. Obviously, I have coaching programs that'll help with that. But just in general, they're gates that she needs to pass through in order to get to the next level. So that's like the whole why about like why this is here. Like it's not a marketing gimmick. It's literally there to help you get to your next level. Like if you're someone that loves up leveling, this is where to start. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It was really funny. I was having this conversation with my friend earlier this week where I was like, okay, I feel like I'm playing in this video game, and each time that I'm leveling up, the boss at the end is me that has
Mhm.
had to like come across all of these like issues that I've been dealing with, right? And so then once I've beat this boss, then I go to the next level, and the boss at the end of that level is like whatever it is that I'm trying to battle during that cycle. And so that
Yes.
sounds very similar.
So funny.
Yeah. I like that a lot because
Yeah.
not only does it tell you like it gives you an explanation of what it is that you're going through, but it's how to work through it to get to the magnetic woman.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And that's like, I think that's one of the things that is kind of unique about what I do is that I'm not just trying to tell you that. And this is one thing that I kind of hate about the personal development world is once you get to a level of awareness, like it'll tell you, oh, you have this, or there's narcissism and there's codependency and blah, 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 and all these things. But like there isn't a very clear direction as to how to like how do you get out of it? How do you heal this? Like how do you and a lot of times people will internalize that and think that there's something wrong with them and that they're broken and um you know I don't know. I feel like personal development has really come into a place where it's just finger pointing more than anything else and sometimes I think it makes people feel worse, right? And so um you know, I really think in this work, it's really about kind of remembering who you are at your core and making that be okay, which is a lot of like deprogramming, like a lot of unraveling and healing and core wounds work and all that stuff because all the things that we've been through are really a kind of a reflection of what's happening today.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's such painful work too that I feel like not a lot of people like they'll get to a certain point, right? Because they want the simple fixes that Instagram
Mhm.
and everyone tells you, hey, try this. And then when it doesn't work in 5 days,
Mhm.
then you're like, well, I'm better off in my comfort zone. Let me just go back here instead of trying to reach to try something new. And you're just stuck because it's painful or it doesn't work in 5
Mhm.
days. You have to spend years battling your inner demons is what I'll call them, I guess, to
Mhm.
be able to get to that point.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely takes some courage. Whenever I have open spots in my practice and I talk to women that are looking for some help and support. One of the things that I'm looking for in a woman is really the dedication to breaking patterns with courage, right? And so when it's like we're good on our own for a long time, especially if we've been through some stuff in our life, like the goddess woman and even the chill woman. If we've been through some stuff in our life, we are really probably very good on our own and we're kind of hyper independent. But just like you're talking about these like game levels, we do hit a point where we just can't do it alone anymore. And that's kind of the point where it takes courage to go forward without really knowing what's going to happen or knowing what to expect or um you know I, I don't know, like it takes maybe potentially some painful things, but I think like again like the type of people that I really look for are people that won't go back because there's no other way, right? Like for me it's like in my work inside of myself it's like I can't go back. Like there's no way that my parts inside of me will let me go back into old patterns or like old ways of thinking or things like that for sure.
Same, right? Like I can't just be like, hey, can I have the ring back?
Yeah. Oh, there's a story. Have you I missed this story. Have you talked about it on the podcast before?
I have. It's actually, and so it's funny that you talk about the magnetic woman because I have a book coming out in a couple months called Becoming the Radiant Woman.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah. And so it talks
Awesome.
about that magnetic woman that's in front of you. And I was honestly sitting here thinking, you know what, Lily, you are kind of like the vision of a magnetic woman that I
Oh.
like. There's just kind of this sense of calm
Mhm.
inside of you that you trust yourself and you love yourself. And like that's just almost centering and grounding. And it's
Mhm.
crazy that you can feel it across the Zoom screen,
Mhm.
but it's really true.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. It took a lot of work to get here. For sure, for sure. But I think like, you know, the women that I see really trying to be the best version of themselves, I feel like there was an attraction for me way back in the day of these women that would like walk into a room and all of it's like the energy was kind of sucked towards them. And I didn't really understand why, because again, like I didn't have a good example. My mom, love her, but she wasn't a great example of like a truly magnetic and aligned woman. Right. And I feel like that women are really craving this ability to be discerning, right? To listen to their intuition, to have this like energy of strength and power behind their voice without having to assert
Mhm.
strength and power, right? And so it's this whole vibe of, again, my behaviors and my clients, that hit this level too of our behaviors and our actions, our thoughts and our beliefs and our emotions all line up with movement towards what it is that we truly desire, in our life. So I really thank you. I really appreciate that because it's been a lot of work. Let me tell you that, girl. Because again, we can go back to the feminine dating archetypes. Chill woman. I was the chill woman for 30 years. And then I did the fortress woman for 4 or 5 years. And then I did the goddess woman for like 6 months and then to a year. And then that's kind of where I hit this level of magnetic woman status.
So how many archetypes are there?
4.
4. And then do you reach the magnetic woman after that? Is that like the ultimate?
Yeah. The ultimate goal again is I don't give this to my clients, as far as like this is the goal that you should be at, but they aspire to be most of the time in this magnetic woman energy.
I love how you described that magnetic woman energy too, because I feel like at one point in time, everyone has come across this woman where like whether it's been in a
Yeah.
coffee shop or
Mhm.
just somewhere where you're just like, I feel you. Like
Mhm.
just approach it. Yeah, it's crazy.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, like it's for us that have been through some stuff in our lives, we have not had a good example of this. So literally it's about like for me, the reason I even got into this work was really about becoming breaking patterns, breaking being a transitional character in my family. And again, even though I didn't really know what that looked like, I knew that what I came from was not it. And so I just continued to do that work. And my niece and my nephew, those were my guiding lights, right? Like I wanted them to see someone different than what they knew and what they grew up with.
I love that. So you're making me think a lot about how when you're stepping into this process, there is a lot of self-trust when you're finally getting to the upper levels of it, because you have to almost trust that there is something better out there or that you will ultimately find
Mhm.
that person for you, right?
Mhm.
And you were talking about how sometimes knowing that you need more self-love is not enough. Can you kind of talk to me about um, like how you feel stuck in that, or like what's missing between that awareness and the real change?
Ooh. Oh, that's a good question. So I think everyone knows by now, especially everyone listening to this podcast, that, everyone's heard that saying of you have to love yourself in order for someone to love you. Right. And it's kind of a platitude, at least from where I come from, because what I realized in my journey was, and this is like really, really deep, like this is some deep level work. But what I realized in my journey was that even though I knew that, like self love inside of myself and what I was giving to myself became a transaction. So, transactional love was the only love that I knew. I was good at being an achiever. If I was an achiever, there was a transaction. If I was an achiever, I was going to feel more loved. I was going to be loved more. If I got straight A's, I was going to be loved more. If I played varsity sports and did the best at them, which I did, all of those things, then I was going to be loved more. So the only love that I knew was a transactional type of love. And that is the fear that I have when women come to me. I have a couple different programs and, if women start talking about, well, I really got to love myself more, all this stuff. And so we dive in deeper. Like this is the deep stuff. Like if you're on that level and you like that, which I do, that's the only place that I live. The deeper question is, how were you shown love in the past? And are you doing that same thing to yourself? Are you re-traumatizing yourself on the inside with this idea of, well, I love myself and so I'm going to do this. So, for example, like, getting your nails done, taking a bath, all of these things, like people will tell it like kind of put these out there as like these self-care things. If you are constantly doing and doing and doing and doing and doing it, no matter whether that be making money, whether that be being a boss, whether that be being a mom, whether that be et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And whether that be, oh, I love myself, so I'm going to go take a bath, and doesn't quote unquote fix whatever it is that you are trying to help yourself with, your anxiety, your depression, whatever it is, then there is some deeper level healing about what love means to you. And are you really trying to engineer an if then statement inside of yourself? So if I take a bath, then I'll feel loved, right? If I get my nails not done, then I will feel loved. And so there's this whole, like personal development is like a multi-billion-dollar business, right? And so there is profit about this idea of you have to love yourself in order for someone to love you. And I will tell you, when I knew that this had changed for me, so this will help maybe hopefully anyone listening about what the difference is, right? The difference for me was that when my behaviors, my actions, my thoughts, my beliefs, my emotions really, really lined up with this idea of I have to love myself. For example, the chill woman, for example, and with the dating archetypes, the feminine dating archetypes, she tends to, and again, I've been there, she tends to get intimate too quickly at the beginning of the dating process. She tends to, because she wants connection so deeply, she tends to self-sacrifice and self-abandon, right? And so when I moved from the chill woman stage to the like goddess woman stage, it was when I actually started to set boundaries and hold the boundaries about what I expected inside of myself and what I expected from the other person. And so for me, self-love is about actually speaking up for yourself, showing up for yourself in ways that you haven't shown up for yourself before. It's about even though it is scary, it's actually about doing these actions, these words in ways that are healing, protective for the different wounded parts inside of you, that help those wounded parts inside of you be seen, be heard, be understood, and be loved. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense. And you're making me super curious. So after this, I have to go take the test
Please.
because
Okay. Yes.
as I'm like going through and building all of this business and stuff, I'm sitting here and I'm like, I just want to be seen. Like, I just want someone to see all the stuff that I'm doing. And I'm like, why? Why can't you just see
Mhm.
yourself and like know that you're doing? So it's just kind of funny. You said
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, a lot of the, what's funny that, so in like, well, I'm sure, like you're working on your business, like, patterns that happen in business also happen in relationship, right? So, the chill woman, for example, has complained. Oh, a lot of women have, but mostly the chill woman has complained about being seen and not being heard in relationships, right? And so what we want to do is we want to see what is unsafe inside spiritually, emotionally, you know, maybe even physically, what's unsafe about being seen? What's unsafe about being heard? And that is that's where the target is for the healing. So I am curious. Absolutely.
We'll send you what it is. And then I'll also tell
Please.
you a little bit about the story because I know
Yes.
you're curious.
Yeah.
Okay. So this other question that I have for you is kind of a mixed bag, right? We have a bunch of different outlets to be able to meet people. We've got the dating apps. We've got, your friends setting up on blind dates and you just trying to go to wherever, right? Like the things that you enjoy to do or going to a bar, or just being seen in public. Why is dating so hard? No matter if you're in your 30s, your 40s, your 50s.
Oh, all right. So here's the mindset shift that if anyone is telling, like, and I was there. I told all my friends and all my family and all the things, dating sucks, dating sucks, dating sucks. And that is by far the overall theme, especially in 30s, 40s, 50s, after divorce or 2 divorces or wherever you are, that dating is hard and dating sucks. Okay. Um, so the mindset shift that I would really, if someone is in this space, is that it's not that dating sucks. It's that your experience with dating sucks. And so the opportunity is to change your experience. So there is a lot of things that go along with that opportunity. There's healing wounds, like all of the kind of core wounds. If anyone's ever like in a dating cycle or a dating pattern, what I'd love for them that they don't like or that's not serving them, what I'd love for them to hear is that it's not actually you that's doing the dating. It is a wounded part of you that is leading your dating process and driving that bus or driving that car. Right. So your work is to heal that part of you. So your highest self, like your most aligned self is actually going, leading the dating process. That's one way to change the experience, right? There's the scarcity wounds. Like you talked about, Celeste, about this idea of scarcity, right? If I hear, I'll hear other dating quote unquote experts on podcasts and it's all doomsday stuff. It's like, well, the stats are this and this there are more women than men, or there's the rate of divorce is so high, all this stuff. The thing is that if parts of you believe that there's actually scarcity out there, like, then you'll start to think to yourself or tell your friends, there aren't enough men in my town. There aren't enough conscious men out there, all of this stuff. And I do not believe that that is true. And my clients who have done the work about changing their inner beliefs, their inner experience, they start to believe in their body, in their soul, in their mind, in their nervous system that the world is actually abundant. Like that is how you become a magnetic woman and actually attract, what it is that you truly like desire and deserve. And so, you know, I'm not trying to like convince people that dating doesn't suck because I know I've been there and I know that parts of you really, really believe it. So your work again is to change your experience. And after you change your experience, you will start to see people, men come into your life that parts of you don't even believe that it was possible. The up level inside of yourself will be reflected on the outside of yourself by the up level people that start to come into your life. Dating will not be a drain. I when I was on the dating apps, I felt like I was project managing the crap out of the dating apps. There are so many messages, like it was like I had them in flow charts and all this stuff. And it was so hard. It was time consuming and it was annoying and all that stuff. It doesn't have to be like that. Like there's a whole system that my clients go through to change the inner stuff happening inside of them, attract what it is that they want on the outside, but then go through this whole system where it's not a time drain. It's not boring. It's like you're back in your joy and having fun and all that stuff. So it's really about changing the whole idea in your mind and your body and your soul about dating and what it means to you.
I love that. And I absolutely get the concept of that. Like, I live in, I'm not going to call it like a smaller town, but it's smaller, like,
Mhm.
and there's some larger cities nearby, but like, I don't want to drive that far. Right. And so I'm sitting here thinking Olympia's a little weird. The dating pool is small and, like I go out often to do the activities I enjoy. Right. But I haven't yet seen somebody around. And so if I were to shift my energy inside and really focus on healing and go and do the same things that I'm doing now, is that when just my magnetism will speak?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I believe so. I have a guess. I think you're the goddess woman. So please, can we keep saying this? Okay. So yes, I believe so. And I believe, like for a lot of women, like I host a lot of free master classes, right? And a lot of women, I have Q&A at the end, and a lot of women are like, what's the best app to go to? Do we have to meet someone on the apps? All this stuff. And the way that I see it, you don't have to do anything. Like if there's an energy of you having or should or anything like that, that energy is not good that's a blocker for actually attracting aligned people into your life. So I can tell you what happened with me. Like
Please.
I went through this whole healing process, right? And then I started to kind of systematize my dating like dating system basically. And again, it's way too long to talk about now, and people pay me thousands of dollars for it too, but like it's a whole 13-step system where again, it's about changing your experience, but you got to first change it on the inside. That's the number one thing. Um but I was just like everyone else. Like everyone wants to meet their person in real life. Like duh, of course. Like you want to meet your person when you're out doing the things that you love. You want to meet them at the grocery store when you're low key looking at a cucumber and thinking about things, but you're side eyeing, this cute man buying veggies, in the veggie aisle. Um, but I can tell you this, and my clients begin to understand this, is that the dating apps, in my opinion, are this beautiful testing ground for learning, for changing patterns, right? Because I always call dating trigger town. Like it's going to bring up so many different triggers and so many wounds inside of yourself. And when you have someone like me kind of walking aside with you, we heal those when they happen, right? There are certain things that we can get to, together. There's certain things you can get to on your own. But when you're talking about these really, really deep level kind of subconscious and unconscious patterns that are running, we look at that together when we go through trigger town. And I love the apps because they are triggering. Like I'm that type of person where I see pain and I go towards it now because I know that that is where my healing lies. Like I've done this enough times to know that. And with my clients, I'm like, well, what are you resisting? And that's what we work on. But so with my experience in using dating apps is kind of like this learning opportunity for me. What ended up happening is I did meet the man of my dreams in real life, right? And so, but I would not have been able to do that. I know without a shadow of a doubt that that would have not happened. I would not have been ready if I met him had I not gone through these learning experiences through the dating apps. And so if we can get into that kind of mindset, know that you're not alone, know that you don't have to do the same thing over and over and over again, then the apps, in my opinion, are actually a really great place to really start to learn, hear your intuition, hear your own voice, learn to speak up for your needs and your wants and desires, learn how to trust yourself on choosing the right person, because in the past, you don't have a good track record with that, right? And so I hope that answered your question. I kind of like went off into a tangent, but
Yeah, I love that. It's like practice with training wheels before you like set yourself off into, I mean, you don't even have to meet the people. You can just have conversations.
yeah. And it's really not about doing anything. It's actually about being who you are. And that can be such like a platitude too. Like I remember people like, "Oh, just be yourself." And I didn't even know who I was, back then. So I was just like, again, like I was a very good chameleon, in dating. I could be sexy, I could be funny, I could be, all of those things. Um, but again, I was kind of like self-sacrificing because I really didn't know who I was and they didn't know who I was either. So I constantly had to keep them entertained. I constantly like it was just a constant like cycle and wheel that I was turning through until I kind of broke that cycle.
You and I are the same. You and I are the same.
It's awesome.
Okay. So the love awakening blueprint,
Mm,
what does that journey look like?
yeah. So the love awakening blueprint really is all about your patterns. So if you are complaining of dating sucks, or you're seeing unhealthy people come to you, if you're attracting emotionally unavailable men, if you're attracting feminine men instead of masculine men, if you are not feeling seen and not feeling heard through the dating process, if you're feeling irrelevant, maybe if you're older and you have, my oldest client, I think is 67, right? And so there is always room for change inside of yourself. But if you're seeing like a pattern that you are not liking inside of yourself or outside of yourself, the Love Awakening Blueprint invites you to look at your patterns as information, Just look at your patterns as information. And then what you really want to do is you want to start to get curious about your patterns instead of wanting your patterns to go away. So if you heard me drop the knowledge bomb earlier of it's not you that's leading the dating process if you have a bad pattern, it is a core wound of yours. That means that a core wound is running a pattern. So a pattern lives in a core wound for you. And what that means is that with a Love Awakening blueprint, if we can get curious about our patterns instead of trying to push down, push away, or push aside our patterns, which is what everyone's telling us to do, and it's what you're doing as well, then you are going to start to do some really deep level healing work about if your curiosity is really about curiosity and it's not about like, I hate you, which is your inner critic, again, it's like a whole, it's a whole other thing. What you're going to start to do is you're going to start to learn that your pattern has a purpose. And the purpose is probably about fear. It's probably about maybe self-protection. And again, this is like deep level, like we're talking like going from like level 1 to like level 5 in this conversation. So, take what you will from this. So it's about looking at your patterns as information. It's about getting curious about them. It's about discovering their purpose. And then it's about when you kind of discover their purpose, it's about actually thanking them for what they're doing and really trying to understand how you can go through this dating process without them being involved. And that's kind of conceptually and consciously very hard to understand if you don't do like the deeper level work, but like really trying to understand what the purpose of your patterns are. For example, like, what's, if you want to share, like what's a main complaint for you, like in dating right now?
Like they're just like breadcrumbing. They'll give you what you want, but there's like either it's not what I'm ultimately looking for, right? They'll keep you around just enough.
Okay. Okay. So the pattern is then for you is if they're breadcrumbing, then that means that you keep following the breadcrumbs.
Mhm.
Okay. So what, like, we don't have to do all this, but I'm just kind of like going through this, like, so if that's a pattern, what is up with that pattern? Like what's happening with that? Like what purpose does that serve?
It will, if I keep them around, right, I'm not going to be alone. I
Yeah.
found somebody that I can hold on to,
Right.
and like it's filling enough of a hole that I'm still too scared to walk away and just be by myself.
Mhm. So, like, there's something around about abandonment. There's something around about connection. There's something about maybe speaking up, like the fear of maybe speaking up, like, this is what I'm wanting and this is what I'm feeling. But, there doesn't seem to be, there's some fear around there too. So, that's all. I mean, that's really all we're doing, really, in the Love Awakening blueprint. It's really trying to figure out we can't, do all of the healing work around that, right? Within in like a 45-minute podcast episode, but it's really about finding out what your core wounds are and then doing the healing around that, right? Your patterns always have a purpose. They always have a purpose. So if you're seeing breadcrumbing, then inside the pattern is, well, where am I self-abandoning? Where am I self-sacrificing? Where am I too scared if there's fear about speaking up for my needs and my wants and desires? What's the fear about what happens if I do that? Like, am I going to get rejected? Am I going to be alone? And really, that's where the target is for the healing.
I love that. And
Are you
it'll
feeling
like,
seen right now?
thank you for witnessing
I'm
me.
just kidding. I'm just kidding. What were you saying?
Um, I don't know. Well, like, yeah, understanding exactly what it is that's going on for you will help you not get breadcrumbed again.
Well, eventually, yeah.
Yeah.
Eventually, yeah. But there's some like, you don't just all of a sudden not have a voice and then speak up, right? Like there's a huge gap in between, like, the chill woman, for example, doesn't really have any needs, right? And so one of the things for the chill woman is actually finding out what her needs are. You got to find out what your needs are before you even speak up about them, right? And then when you find out what your needs are, you speak up about them, you continue to speak up about them. That's when things really start to change, is the consistency in speaking up for your needs and wants and desires, especially in dating and relationships.
Yeah, I like that. I'm super excited to take this test now.
Yes. I'm excited to hear.
So the last thing today, if someone took away one thing from today's conversation that would have the biggest impact on their dating life, what would it be?
Mm-mm. So again, like if there are kind of unhealthy patterns happening in your life, the good news is that it's not really you. And I know sometimes you feel crazy because one part of you, wants to do something or says something, and one part of you does another thing, and it can kind of feel like a war going on inside of yourself. There's the inner critic and blah blah blah, and all this stuff happening. So the good news is that it's not you. These are just parts of you. So these are parts of you actually screaming, like literally trying to scream in the dark that you need healing. And you don't need it, like, obviously, like, I'm not telling you you should or anything like that. But really, these triggers, again, when we go through these types of triggers, they're really just signposts for your next evolution, your next up level. And you can continue to ignore them if you want. You continue to avoid them. You can continue to push them down or push them away or push aside, and then you will continue to see the same patterns, right? And so the good news is that this can change, and it can change pretty rapidly when you do like focused healing and targeted effort, and all this stuff. Of course, like I have that, but there are many other, great practitioners that have this as well. But it's not you. It is really just a part of you. And so when you start to align these different parts of you into being kind of your whole self or your highest self, when your behaviors and your actions match up with your needs and wants and desires, right? Consistently, when your thoughts actually turn from negative to positive, like the scarcity wound, for example. When when you start to believe, like a lot of my clients know that they are enough in their head, but they don't feel it. And if they're really true to themselves, they do not feel it in their body. And that's when things start to change. And it's all about nervous system. It's all about inner alignment, and it's all about, aligning these different parts of you. So again, it's not you. You're not doing anything wrong. You're not wrong. It's really just about your next stage of evolution and doing what you need to do to get there.
It's super exciting. It really is, especially if you know that you want to get to the next level and you want to find that person that's going to resonate with you at the highest level. So thank you so much for being here today. How can people work with you? Where can listeners go take your quiz? Obviously, I'll post the links, but any more information about working with you would be.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Celeste. You're amazing. I can tell you've done your work as well. My healing is your healing. I love it. I invite, anyone really that is looking to find out more about their patterns and more about their feminine dating archetype, or even if you're in a relationship, sometimes if you're still feeling seen or unheard, or you're seeing, patterns, if you're in a relationship, you can find out more about yourself by taking the quiz. It's the Feminine Dating Archetype Quiz at datingarchetype.com. It takes 2 minutes. It's super quick, and it'll spit out your result. And again, it'll also tell you what you need to do to get to the next level. So that's super important, right? Like, this isn't like you're bad because you're this stage. This is just where you are, but this is also where you can grow to. And that's a good jump off point for anyone that wants to connect with me as well.
Amazing. Well, you heard her. Go check it out and see for yourself.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Celeste.
All right. Bye. Wow. What an impactful session. I know that I'm walking away feeling a little bit more whole, and just remembering that love doesn't have to mean a partner. Love can be so many things. The smile from a stranger, someone genuinely seeing you, a moment of connection with yourself. When we begin to notice those small moments of love, we start to actually live in abundance instead of scarcity. Here is what I want you to remember. Dating can feel vulnerable because it stirs up the old stories about worth and belonging. But it also stirs new stories of possibility, of joy and connection. And that ache that you feel is not proof that you're broken. It's an invitation to become more honest with yourself. Healing is not about fixing yourself into someone else's idea of what is lovable. It is about remembering your wholeness, letting those tender parts of you be seen, and stepping into the world already knowing that you are worthy of love. So if Lilli's story resonated with you, connect with her at datingarchetype.com and discover what your blocks are and your magnetic strengths. You can also find her resources linked in the show notes below. And if this conversation helped you, please share it with a woman who needs hope right now. And then come join me at myhealingisyourhealing.com, where you'll find resources, workshops, and the Radiant Woman's Collective is a space for real conversations about dating, healing, and belonging. And while you're there, download my free guide, Becoming the Radiant Woman, to start your own journey towards magnetism and self-trust. Until next time, keep showing up, keep growing, and remember, you were never meant to dim your light. Thanks for tuning in and being here, for healing out loud, and for walking this path beside me. If this episode cracked something open or helped you remember a part of yourself, pass it on and share it with someone you love. For more support, free resources, or the next steps to your journey, head over to my website, myhealingisyourhealing.com. And if you loved today's conversation, subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your words help this space grow and help more women find their way home to themselves. If I was your muse today, then my healing is your healing. Until next time.